more than that, but we can. So what? So you kind of mentioned it might be the stage in your life. I think we all come if we've been working in the real world for a long time. I think one of the classical questions that eventually comes up is: have we made a difference? Do we matter? Is what I'm doing, has it made an impact? Was that your entry into the subject matter of ethics, or what kind of triggered the interest in ethics?
Well, obviously, you are confronted with that problem throughout your career. Mm-hmm. And what I found very noticeable was when I went to business school, and one of the top business schools, and then they have this ethics day that they call it.
An ethics day?
They have an ethics day, and they do it right at the beginning of the curriculum.
One whole day. Oh my God.
One whole day on ethics, and then you get the whole spiel of the entire curriculum after that without ever even mentioning it ever again.
But it's a check. Yeah.
But yeah, exactly. And so I'd like to maybe we can go a little bit more into depth about that.
We will, yes.
So that was one thing that then I kept remembering later. And but I think the key motivation is that throughout my career, I have noticed that bullies and really evil people and people who are just optimizing everything for themselves and who use really despicable means in achieving that, this is by far the majority of the people who are successful in business. This is my experience. Mm-hmm. And I have a whole list of acquaintances who have been very successful, who I all know personally that they are pretty much, and I will not use an expletive on your podcast, but you can imagine what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And similarly, I know many people who have always stayed honest and who have been transparent and who have not engaged in shortcuts, who are where they are. They are certainly not up there. And it is very interesting. If we read the newspaper today, and we read all the time about people who have been admired for years, for decades, for their incredible success, and now they all end up in jail. Why is that? And I've come to the conclusion, you cannot really, in our capitalist system, the way it's set up right now, it is very difficult to be very successful without being dishonest.
Without being unethical.
Correct.
Okay. That's a profound statement. I think you're pointed out something I think that's very important. And I think emotionally, our listeners will probably also say, the principle of being ethical, that's valuable. We all want to be ethical. But I think deep in our subconscious or in our unconscious, there's one of the reasons why ethical processes often fail in application is because of a certain fear. And one of the fears is losing competitive advantage. I think a lot of people see from not just from a military perspective, but also from an economic perspective. And I believe economics often mimics war. Okay. That there can be a short-term tactical benefit to being unethical. In some industries, you might say that tactic is not a tactic, but a strategy, because it's more midterm and long-term. Now, one of the things we discussed when we were kind of going through the outline of this potential podcast, or actually a real podcast, is you're actually doing some research for a book that you're kind of nailed down. And once again, I think the background premise is there's a lot of initiatives out there right now, corporate social responsibility, ESG and SDG. Let's kind of use the framework of your book to kind of whet the appetite of our viewers and listeners. Why do you think that ethics, or let's take a step back. What is your primary assessment of why there are attempts at doing more ethics, but it's failing? Is it failing from your perspective?
Yes, good question. I am absolutely convinced that it's failing.
Okay.
Just in the light of what I just said about my experiences in the business world, if anything, it seems to be getting worse. I mean, the brazenness of business leaders to take advantage of really outrageous situations, illegal ones, or obviously endowed with a lot of conflicts of interest. All that is nowadays totally acceptable. People have somehow lost, not just that they don't get outraged anymore about it, they don't seem to see these situations anymore. I mean, if the president of the United States is becoming a car salesman for his best buddy in front of the White House, it's people think that there wasn't even a commentary pointing out that this is actually a quite outrageous conflict of interest. So I think it's not working. I think it's very clear not working. But my analysis of why it's not working is because it's not taught in business schools the way it should be.
Okay.
And many structural reasons, or the second reason would be many structural reasons in our system allow us to do certain things with impunity. And then if you can do those, then maybe you're stupid not to do them, when other people do them, right? So, but obviously the underlying philosophical problem about that is that people think, they always think in what we have heard this word a lot lately, also in connection with the United States president. He's always described as being transactional. And what does that mean? Everybody, I really hate that word because
it's a Middle Eastern word, actually. What the Middle Eastern word is bakshish, isn't it?
Well, no, I don't think that's what's meant. I think people who are transactional are seeking a short-term gain, on a sort of material level, without much regard for mid-term or long-term relationships or benefits. So, and this transactionalism is characterizing our economy, and that has advantages because when you are very flexible in these kind of things, they can adapt very quickly to new situations dynamically. So there's this advantage, but the disadvantage is, of course, it really deteriorates the long-term orientation, and we can certainly prove that. Real value creation is impossible without taking a longer-term view. Yeah. And by the way, this is exactly the same problem we have in politics, right? I mean, the shorter the cycles, the less accountable are politicians, and maybe that word responsibility, maybe that has something to do with business leaders as well.
Yeah.